Ravens Wrap is sponsored by Bud Light, jctickets.net, Geico Insurance, Dunaway Furniture, Ocean City Golf Club, RussellStreetReport.com, Comfort Inn Gold Coast, Holiday Inn Express, BuyAToyota.com, your official site for Toyota deals. The original Green Turtle, hosted by the Blue Ox Bar and Grill.
And welcome back. It is the original Green Turtles Ravens Wrap Show on Comcast Speech TV, and now this season also on ABC 47 WNBT, in which we're extremely proud to be broadening our reach across the Delmarva Peninsula. Also back for another year on the strongest Ravens signaled affiliate on the peninsula, Delmarva's Rock Radio 93.5 The Beach, and our radio program airs every Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. And coming up, 1 o'clock game as the Ravens take on the Atlanta Falcons. Network pregame at 12:30. Again, you can catch our game at 11 o'clock. Recapping more of the Ravens' 48-17 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll do that in just a second. I always like to do a high school update as we support our local teams. Stephen and Decatur folks got their first win of the year on the road at North Carolina homecoming. So congrats to Bob Knox and the guys. They get off the schneid. They're 1-5 on the season, but they were probably the best 0-5 team in the state of Maryland. So congrats to them. Fortunately, Indian River playing Laurel real tough in the first half, but they lose by a score of 47-20. They're 2-4 on the year. Let's take a look around the AFC North before we get back to the Ravens. The Bengals had a tie game against the Carolina Panthers in that game of 37-37. And how about, was it Nugent missing basically a chip shot of a field, maybe a little bit more than a chip shot of a field goal, but you don't expect that. What a disgusted look Marvin Lewis had on his face after that kick.
I think it was a 37-yarder, and
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I mean, it felt like it should have just been a shoe-in type deal, and you just walk to the sidelines. I mean, you got to be the loneliest guy in a locker room after you miss that. It's bad.
Bobby, let me just say this real quickly. You know, everybody is in love with Cincinnati last year and coming into this year. And look, they have a lot of talent on that team. Don't get me wrong, but they get blown out on the road at New England. I know New England came out punching after that KC game, and they were hungry. I'm not surprised New England won, but we were shocked at the margin that they lost by. But then you come home against a Carolina team coming off a loss like that, a team that the Ravens absolutely blew out at home, and they tie them 37 apiece, and maybe Cincinnati's come back to life a little bit.
No question. I think it's a little chink in the armor, and I never thought Cincinnati was as good as everybody was making them out to be. So I think the Ravens are right where they want to be right now. Everybody looks at Cincinnati. That tie is going to come back to haunt Cincinnati if we can play good football down the stretch for sure. And you know what was amazing, because you say it's a chip shot, but it was shades of Billy Cundiff. What I do think was interesting was Adam Pac-Man Jones after the game basically called out his kicker, which you really don't want to do. You want to pat the guy on the back because you're going to need him later in the year. But he basically called him out. He said, everybody's got a job to do, basically do your job. You might want to say that in private to yourself, but you don't need to say that to the media. So,
well, you don't think he doesn't know that he missed
exactly,
the kick, and he's not trying to do his job there?
I think stuff like that doesn't bode well for the locker room.
No.
You need to stand behind the guy and pick the guy up, and that guy's going to have a lot bigger kicks than that kick coming down the road there.
And it's not like he's not an established kicker, too. I mean, he's had a lot of success for that team in the past, and maybe it's the emotions of the moment. Maybe you get caught up and you just say something that maybe you regret afterwards. But everyone knows two kickers. There's a lot of head games that goes into kickers too, so you don't really want to mess with the man's confidence. Not that doesn't.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Now, I'm trying to remember what the score was at the end of 4 quarters, but it's not like Pac-Man Jones, your defense had a great game at the end of regulation there. So how about looking at yourself a little bit?
No question.
Now, look, the Pittsburgh Steelers are not the same Pittsburgh Steelers, especially on defense. They weren't coming into this year, but then they sustained 3 injuries to starters. That's huge right there. You have to weigh that in. But for the Cleveland Browns, who have not been a winning organization in a long time, I'm sorry, the 31-10 win, even though it's not necessarily the greatest of Steelers teams, that's still a big win to me at home to do it the way they did it. That is another step forward for the Cleveland Browns. They win 31-10.
Well, if you take a look at the pregame show on CBS, you had Bart Scott and Boomer basically picking the Browns. I think the only one that picked the Steelers was, of course, Bill Cowher. And all of them said the same thing. This is a statement game. Statement game for the Steelers, a statement game for the Browns. And if that was a statement game, I think the Browns made a lot bigger statement than the Steelers, although the Steelers may have made a statement. Maybe they aren't that good. Maybe they are getting old. But you know what? The Steelers are just like the Patriots. Don't count them out. They got Ben Roethlisberger. It's still a lot of football games left to play, so let's not get too down on the Steelers and too high on the Browns. But I do think the Browns are underrated. They're a good football team. They've got an easy schedule the next 4 or 5 games, so don't get them out of the picture, and don't think they can't win the AFC North.
And Spencer, I think Bobby brings up a good point because everybody had the Steelers down and out last year after 0-4 start. And even them in the last week of the season, they had a chance. They needed some things to happen, but they had a chance to go to the playoffs just like the Ravens did coming in to the game at 8-7 against Cincinnati.
Yeah, they got a bad call in San Diego, or they probably go to the playoffs.
That's absolutely right. Now, take a look at the division. Very tight. Cincinnati's 3-1-1 in first. The Ravens 4-2 in second, Cleveland at 3-2 in third, and Pittsburgh at 3-3. So a very tight division to say the least. And it'll be interesting to see in the weeks to come what transpires. It is a week-to-week league. Guys, we talked about in the last segment about John Harbaugh keeping starters in despite the fact that they were up big on Tampa Bay. And he was asked about pulling Flacco early, and he said, absolutely not. Did we consider doing that? Harbaugh said during his press conference when asked if he had thought about taking Flacco out much earlier, he said, that would be, in my opinion, foolish. You don't do that in this league. This is pro football. I don't see anybody else doing it. I wouldn't even consider it at this point in time. So I think the consideration came in the fourth quarter. We talked about it at about the 10-minute mark. We went out for that one drive. That would have been the time to possibly do it, but we decided, no, we're going to keep Joe in there and keep our offensive line in there and protect Joe, play our players, and that's what we'll probably do in the future.
Yeah, I think in that situation, you alter your play calling and do things that are more protective. You start running the ball, especially if you're wanting to lead. I mean, you're wanting to eat at the clock. But I think you change it also in that aspect of how can I protect him, but keep him in there in case, something goes haywire. Like we said, I mean, it's so easy to, I shouldn't say easy, but it's so much more typical now for teams to score high numbers of points and to catch fire in this league. And they were so early in that game when they were ahead. You can't pull them at that point.
And he also alluded to what do other teams do. And the other teams you look at immediately are the teams that we've seen over the years that blow out teams occasionally, which would be Peyton Manning and also Tom Brady. When they get big leads, usually Peyton Manning stays in the game and so does Tom Brady. So it's not a trend to take out the quarterback. The last thing you want to do is take a guy out and then have to put him back in. So once you take him out, he's done.
Right.
And that's what they were hoping. And I think Spencer makes a good point. You alter your play calling, you do things to protect him. Believe me, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wanted to get out of there as fast as the Baltimore Ravens did in the third and fourth quarter.
And let's realize our secondary in terms of coverage has not been the best. So knowing Tampa Bay has to throw the football, granted they got little protection for Glennon, but knowing they had to throw the football against a weak secondary, there was a chance they could score some points. And guess what? They did score some points in the second half. The defense didn't look as good, but at that point, there were probably some reasons for that. By the way, John Harbaugh also weighed in on that 64-yard field goal attempt that the Ravens took up 38-0. And he said, frankly, hey, we're just looking to try to get extra points. And when you're up like that big, you can afford to turn over the field position to Tampa Bay. Obviously, if that was, say, a 10-3 game, you're punting there. You're not kicking the field goal. So that was his explanation. Guys, let's talk about the defense. Excellent job. The Ravens relentless getting after quarterback Mike Glennon, sacking him a season-high 5 times and hitting him 15 times. It was reminiscent of a couple of years ago, that Ravens defense. Elvis Dumervil had a sack and a half, 2 quarterback hits, and Brandon Williams collapsed the pocket for 5 tackles and a half a sack. And Jimmy Smith did an excellent job on Vincent Jackson, just holding him to 4 catches, 66 yards on 13 catches. And Lardarius Webb had a very good game as well.
Yeah, I think the most impressive thing that the defense did was they limited Tampa to 2 for 12 on third down, and they're getting off the field. And we had talked about that they were having some issues picking up third downs last time I was here a couple weeks ago, and they're having some trouble. They're giving up long drives, and it was kind of that bend but not break. They would hold some teams to field goals. But they got off the field, and once you start doing that, especially with the way the offense was rolling, if you can continually put them back out there, that's exactly what you want out of that group.
Well, it was amazing. It looked like a different team. Pressure up front. I think, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, Mike. Brandon Williams, I think, is making Haloti Ngata even better because he's got a guy that can help him on the inside. I think when the Ravens get Jernigan back, that's going to be a big help. Obviously,
and he practiced on Wednesday, by the way, so that's a good sign.
Which is great news. And then obviously we had Canty that was not active as well. So we got some health issues on the defensive line. They're also talking about Terrence Cody sighting maybe in the coming weeks. So that could be a good thing. So that can help the rotation of that defensive line. But Brandon Williams and Haloti Ngata, a great combination. They push the pocket back, again, gives the edge rushers a better angle towards the quarterback. And when you got guys like Dumervil and Suggs chasing you, and you're a young quarterback, you got the fear in your eyes for sure.
That was pure domination. It's been a while since I've seen the Ravens defensive line do that to another team's offensive line. play in and play out for the most part. I mean, if folks watch the Penn State-Michigan game in the second half, Michigan dominated Penn State's offensive line just like that. It was very reminiscent if you happen to see the game the night before, and it's good to see. And look, the Ravens ended up hitting Andrew Luck 15 times in the game, but he threw the ball 49 times. So there's a certain amount of plays that you're going to give up, and I think that the Ravens, according at least to John Harbaugh, Pro Football Focus has a lot of different stats, and they take a look at things, that the Ravens actually are one of the better pass-rushing teams, but it doesn't always show up because of lack of sacks. But when you're getting quarterback pressures or hits, that also can play a role in altering an offense.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, too, when you're talking about hitting Luck versus hitting Tampa's quarterback, because Luck is so stocky that he's still able to throw a lot of balls despite having guys hanging on him. Yeah. And you look at the other thing I thought of was the defensive line was doing such a good job for the Ravens, but that second group was also getting done. I mean, C.J. Mosley finishes with 8 tackles. He had 5 quarterback hits himself, and they were opening up the gaps. And once that, I mean, it starts up front, but you definitely saw it kind of filter back down as well.
No question. If the front is playing well, it's going to take a lot of pressure off that back end. And we've talked about it since the beginning of the season. The back end was the big question mark. We're young. We had some injuries. You alluded to it. The fact that Ladarius Webb is back, he's starting to play a lot better. That's definitely an encouraging sight. Jimmy Smith has an interception. He's gaining more and more confidence every week. He's one of the premier corners in the league. He's going to get paid probably this year. So it's really good to see those guys taking some roles. A guy, Terrence Brooks, getting more and more snaps. So Elam's playing a little bit better, although he still struggles in coverage a little bit. Yeah. Stewart couldn't catch the ball. We would have had an interception there. Could have been a big play. But we really didn't need it. But that's why the guys play defense, because they can't catch the football.
That's right. Well, we finally got our secondary to get an interception. Jimmy Smith had a pick on a rush play. He did a good job picking off. But our other picks have been 1 from Mosley and then 2 from defensive lineman Olodinada, which is kind of embarrassing. But the secondary finally got a pick. But I think what was big was certainly Lardarius Webb playing, and he had some 48 snaps, they say, in the game, and that was 59 snaps in the heat like that, getting him back into game shape. That's really paramount, especially with Asa Jackson out for a while.
Yeah, I mean, for how young that secondary is without him, if you can start plugging him back in and kind of really implement him back in that group, he can definitely change what they got going on.
He's going to need a big game this coming Sunday, and we'll talk about that coming up. More of the Ravens Wrap Show, Comcast Beach TV, 47 ABC, and 93.5 The Beach. Keep it here. We're back next.
In April 1959, Art Wall won the Masters, edging out Carey Middlecoff and Arnold Palmer by finishing birdie, 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 par birdie. 1 month later, Ocean City Golf Club celebrated the opening of their first 18 holes. That course has been transformed now into one of the most scenic golf layouts on the East Coast. Come experience 36 of the most beautiful and challenging holes you'll find anywhere. Ocean City Golf Club in Ocean City, Maryland.
Welcome to the Comfort Inn Gold Coast. Conveniently located just 1 block from the beach and adjacent to shopping at the Gold Coast Mall and the movie theater. Newly renovated and open year-round with a marvelous bayfront view. Visit us on the web at comfortgoldcoast.com and see our hot deals and great golf packages, or simply call our direct reservation line to plan your stay.